presentation mode. Emma, there you go. Okay, your 15 minutes is about to start, so good luck and enjoy the talk. Over to you, Emma.
Okay, thank you. Okay, hi. So I'm going to be talking a bit about how I've adapted a lot of drawing activities to use in the online classroom. I'm a big fan of using drawing activities in class in general for a number of reasons. Okay, quite a lot of, I mean, I've got even more, but these are some of the most important ones for me. But then kind of when I started teaching online, these were the ones that really stood out to me as reasons to include drawing in my online classroom. I found obviously like a lot of our students, adults have been working online all day, or the young learners or the teens have been kind of doing worksheets all day or studying online all day. So for me, it was important to try and stop them from looking at the screen all the time, provide a bit of variety, something that's a bit different. In terms of being inclusive as well, like when I was teaching kind of obviously in the traditional classroom, I was thinking more in terms of how I can include dyslexic learners, students who are less confident in writing, and different ways of allowing them to express themselves. But in terms of online teaching, I've been looking for ways to make sure the students who maybe don't have the fastest Wi-Fi access, or students who you know don't have the best access to technology, that they can still feel included in the classroom, and also students who are less confident with technology as well. Also, I've been using, when I'm talking about drawing activities, I'm talking about using pen and paper a lot, because I found when I've been setting up activities, a lot of time has disappeared, like trying to get them to be able to annotate the screen or follow a link. It's used up a lot of time, and it's not always had like a lot of benefits. I've been using drawing activities using a pen and paper, and obviously their camera. The final advantage I found with these activities is that for my students at least, these are activities that are familiar and that they have come across in some form in my classroom before. And I found that they're a big fan of anything in these circumstances. They're a big fan of anything that is familiar to them and that they recognize. And I'm not trying to teach them, you know, yet another new tool or something else that's new to them. Okay, so I'm going to show you a couple of activities that I've been using, okay, and how I've adapted them from the traditional classroom to the online classroom. Okay, so the first one I have is doing a running dictation. So in the traditional classroom, this would work by having students in teams. One student from each team comes to me at the front of the classroom. They read a sentence, usually practicing some kind of grammar point, you know, present continuous, past conditional. So they read the sentence, they remember the sentence, they take it back to their teams, they draw a picture, and then the teams have to guess the correct sentence. I have adapted this to the online classroom fairly successfully by sending the students a sentence or several sentences in a private message in the chat box. We've been working on Zoom, so I'm not sure how this would necessarily work with different platforms. So I've been sending the students private messages with their sentences that they're going to have to draw. Sometimes I do this while they're doing the previous activity to reduce setup time, or if it's kind of working as a warmer or it's not possible, while I'm sending everyone their sentences, the other students have thinking time. They're not allowed to draw. I have made adults sit there with their hands on their heads to stop them from cheating at this point. So once they've got their sentences, I put them into breakout rooms. They've got a pen and paper ready, and they start drawing the picture that represents their sentence like they would in the traditional classroom. This is where the chaos happens, but this is also where the fun happens. obviously it's quite difficult to draw a picture and show the camera at the same time. So that's kind of where the challenge comes in for the students. That's where they all kind of start laughing at each other, and that's where they kind of get engaged and have a good time doing it. Then potentially if I've got, I might then rotate the breakout rooms and they can repeat it with the same sentences, either by drawing a new picture or by redoing their picture and starting from scratch. Okay. Okay. So the second activity I wanted to show you is again one that I've adapted that I use a lot in the traditional classroom, and that's using shapes. So I would give my students a set of shapes. So here I've got squares. Potentially I would also give them triangles, circles, hexagons, depending on how cruel I'm feeling that day as to how complicated the shape is. I would then give them time to turn these shapes into an object or any kind of picture or character. So with the squares, it might be a house, it might be a present. They're usually far more creative than anything I could ever come up with. So then what they would do is I would have these on the whiteboard. They would all come up to the board. They would draw their pictures. Everyone would sit back down, and then they would use these pictures in their groups to create a story. Okay, so to adapt this to the online classroom, the first thing I tried is doing this electronically. I tried having it like on the whiteboard on Zoom, which the students could then annotate themselves. This didn't work massively well for me. I got a lot of students using phones who found it difficult to annotate, and it took quite a long time. Some students finished it really quickly, others still hadn't been able to access the right tool. So then I decided to try again with the more traditional pen and paper and holding it up to the camera. So I asked the students to draw 1 or 2 squares. I then explained what I needed them to do, and they drew their pictures. Okay, and I found this to be much more kind of time efficient. It kept the pace of the class up a lot better, and it was just much more successful for me. And then what I would do is I would put them into breakout rooms. They show the camera their picture, and they would then create their story in their breakout rooms. Then if I wanted to extend the activity, I could rearrange the breakout rooms. They've still got their picture, and then they can recreate a new story with a different combination of pictures. And I found having them do it on with pen and paper and holding it up to the camera means that I can do things like move them around in breakout rooms and not worry about who can still see what picture or needing to share a new screen. And again, it's just kept it a lot simpler and a lot easier, which I think a lot of my students have appreciated. Okay, the final thing I wanted to talk about was picture dictation. So where a student draws a picture and then describes it to another student who has to try and recreate it. I've actually found this to be really successful in Zoom because they can't cheat the way that they can in the classroom. Usually in the classroom, if I've got them sitting back to back and describing the pictures to each other while they're drawing, they're looking over their shoulders, and it's quite easy to actually cheat and not have to actually communicate with each other. But doing it through Zoom, obviously if I get them to switch their cameras off while they do the dictation, it's a lot more successful. I've also had them like describing actual objects in their room, describing the layout of the room, which the other student then has to draw, and then they can actually show with the camera. They can show them the object or show them their room, and they can see how successful they have been. Okay, so yeah, so that's all I've got. So I'll just have a look if there's any questions. Okay, yeah, demonstrating the shape game. Don't understand how it works. Yeah, okay, absolutely. So Okay, cool. So with this shape game, if I get a piece of paper, so I would ask my students to draw, okay, maybe a couple of squares like that. I would then ask them to adapt these into a picture. So for example, okay, that one has been turned into a house. I'm a very bad drawer. Okay, and the second one has been turned into a present. I would then put them into breakout rooms. So if each student has got 2 pictures, potentially you've got 6 different pictures. They then need to use these pictures to tell a story. Okay, I hope that's a bit clearer. Okay, there's another question about students who don't have cameras. I deal with that by sometimes, for example, if they're doing like if another student is drawing, obviously they can still do that and they can still participate in that way. Obviously, they can't necessarily draw it themselves. I've not found a way around that yet. Maybe other people have got some suggestions as to how you could deal with that. But what I found is these activities do allow them to participate in some way. There's another question about if I have any students' work. No, unfortunately, I don't have any students' work to show you because obviously all their pictures, they have them in their notebooks. But perhaps I should try and take some photos of that. Yeah, the picture dictation. Okay, so picture dictation, I would usually ask the students to draw a picture. Quite often, a common one I use is a monster. So they all draw their monster, like keeping it a secret from their partner. Then what they do is they then looking at their picture, they describe it to their partner, who has to try and replicate the same picture without looking. So it's about speaking and it's about listening. Obviously, on Zoom, I get them to do this with their cameras turned off, so they can't cheat by showing each other the pictures. Okay, I hope that has cleared that up slightly. Okay, so that's it from me. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Emma. Isn't one person's cheat another person's collaboration?
Exactly, but you know, it kind of ruins my lesson plan, as they say. So
Yeah, no, I was teasing. Somebody gave a suggestion you were on about if they didn't have webcams.
Yeah.
Somebody suggested they could send photos to each other
Yeah.
as an answer, which is true, but that would depend on them having each other's phone numbers, I guess.
Yeah.
But thank you, some really wonderful ideas in there. It's always good to see adaptations of kind of faithful ELT activities into a new context or format. So thank you very much for bringing those to us. And let me just stop the recording.